Luke chapter 4. We're going to read the first 13 verses. Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, left the Jordan and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, where for 40 days he was tempted by the devil. He ate nothing during those days, and at the end of them he was hungry. The devil said to him, "If you are the Son of God, tell this stone to become bread." Jesus answered, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone." The devil led him up to a high place and showed him in an instant all the kingdoms of the world. And he said to him, "I will give you all their authority and splendor. It has been given to me, and I can give it to anyone I want to. If you worship me, it will all be yours." Jesus answered, "It is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." The devil led him to Jerusalem and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. "If you are the Son of God," he said, "throw yourself down from here, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you to guard you carefully. They will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone." Jesus answered, "It is said, do not put the Lord your God to the test." When the devil had finished all this tempting, he left him until an opportune time. Let us pray. Just a closer walk with thee, granted, Jesus, is my plea. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Grant, O Jesus, that we may walk closely with you this hour and through our lives. Grant our plea, Jesus, that we may walk closer with our brothers and sisters in justice and in love. Jesus, hear our plea this morning that each of us may walk more deeply into our faith and walk this day more lightly and with joy. And we pray this in the beautiful name of Jesus. Amen. So, we don't know where that song originated. Just a closer walk with thee. There are stories that tell us about slaves in the field in the early 1800s. In the midst of that back-breaking brutality of slave labor, there were reports that the slaves were heard singing, "Just a closer walk with thee." In the midst of being so bone-tired, they were heard to say, "Jesus, let it be. Let it be." So the song could very well have originated down south in the early 1800s. But that song also sounds very Anglo. I mean, it kind of reminds me of those evangelistic meetings in the early 20th century, you know, where they would use those little chromatic ups and downs to create revival energy. Yeah. We don't know where this song originated, but we do know when it was first written down. There was a musician who was on a train ride from Kansas City to Chicago. And at one particular stop, he heard this porter singing, "Just a Closer Walk with Thee." He loved that song. He got back on the train and went about 3 more stops, but he couldn't get that song off of his brain, just like I haven't been able to get it off my brain for the better part of a week. I'm still humming it throughout the day. He just had to get off that train and get on another one going in the opposite direction until he found that porter, and he had that porter sing that song to him again, and he transcribed it. And in 1940, he published that song. Now, just about everybody has sung that song. Patsy Cline just about owned it back in the 60s. It's been sung by Eric Clapton, Merle Haggard. Am I naming any of your favorites? Ella Fitzgerald, Elvis Presley. But I want you to know, that song has never been sung, in my opinion, like it was sung in 1970 down here at the Newport Jazz Festival by Mahalia Jackson. She sung that song like nobody's business. You know, great singing is not just a lot of notes or a lot of vocal gymnastics. Great singing is a person making something known to you. And I'll tell you, Mahalia Jackson made that song known to us. She started off real slow, and then she kept building. And after a while, she just took a walk. She walked away from the microphone. Because you see, it's not just a song, it's a walk. It's a walk with Jesus. And she syncopated the song with her own rhythms and her own little idiosyncrasies. Here's a point. Each one of us has, in our walk with Jesus, each one of us has to do it in our own rhythm. You've got to do it in your own style, not somebody else's. You have to find your own way of walking with Jesus. So, we're going to take a walk this morning. Let's walk close to Jesus this Lenten season. Now, to begin with, to start off here, I want you to consider with me, just listen to me, I want you to consider with me the amazing, amazing story of evolution that finally has us walking upright. There was a time, scientists tell us 6 million years ago, when we used our arms primarily to shuffle around the ground. But 4 million years ago, our thigh bone became long enough, and that angled socket evolved that created this strong bridge in the hip, and we began to walk upright. 2.5 million years ago, our spine became more curved. You think, well, that's a bad thing. Oh, no. Our spine was perfectly designed for shock absorption while we're walking upright. Oh, this amazing story of evolution. I don't know why Christians are opposed to it. They take this beautiful poetry of Genesis, that beautiful poetry, that hymnic rhapsody, and they take it literally. Listen, they're both beautiful. The poetry in our Bible that describes God as the creator, that deep truth that God is the creator of creation. And then we leave it to science to tell us how it came about. It describes creation unfolding, creation these aren't opposed to each other. No. Do you know that when Charles Darwin wrote his Origin of the Species, the first reaction of a lot of ministers in this country didn't see opposition. They embraced it as two beautiful ways of talking about the same thing. God created the universe with such intricacy and such complexity that evolution is part of our praise to God. Amen? I know it takes some people a while to come around. It was only later that literalists began to see certain Bible passages and take opposition to it. But what an amazing, amazing story. 1.8 million years ago, we finally became bipedal, standing erect and walking. That changed everything. That changed everything. It freed up our hands for other usages. It freed up our hands for the use of complex tools, and being upright, we could scan the environment for dangers. And being upright, we could actually encounter each other's faces, face to face, consciousness to consciousness. This changed everything. It is a beautiful praise of God. And now, listen to this, now it's not just about physical evolution. We must undergo a spiritual evolution. This is what our walk with Jesus is about. We physically evolved to walk. Now we must spiritually evolve and grow with more compassion and more caring and more loving. Spiritual evolution must continue. Human beings must become higher spiritually. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a walk with Jesus and continue our spiritual evolution this Lenten season. And where we're walking right now is into Luke 4, Luke chapter 4. Look at this. It's a walk into the desert. Oh, a walk with Jesus will not always be easy. And we encounter this scene in Luke 4 that sort of recapitulates the 40 years that Israel spent in the wilderness, those trials and tribulations that Israel faced before entering the Holy Land, which some of you are going to see, I hear, at the end of April. And I'm going to honor our dear brother Paul back here, his request to pray for. Who's going to the Holy Land? Okay, Bob and Debbie and Paul. Is anybody else going? Yeah. We're going to pray for you from now till you get back, that you have safety and that's a wonderful spiritual experience for you. But all right, the 40 is the number of trials and testing and temptation. And Jesus is 40 days here in the wilderness. No, it's not easy. It's not easy. And the one thing that you see in this passage, in this desert scene is, are you ready for this? Diabolos. Diabolos. Diabolos is translated here in our NIV as the devil, but that's not a perfect translation. The word diabolos means the slanderer, one who tears you down, that backbiting, those corrosive comments that derail you, that put down artist, diabolos. You know, when I read this passage, I'm not thinking of a little red man with horns and a long tail and a pitchfork standing out there in the desert. Our battle is here. Your battle is in your mind. This is how diabolos works. All these afflictive thoughts that are going on in your head. Diabolos wants to break you down. And as I read these temptations, these diabolos temptations, I think of the most fundamental way diabolos is trying to make Jesus give up. This is the most fundamental temptation in all of life, is to quit, to give up. Notice, he's tempted to turn stones into bread, to give up on his fast. He's in a spiritual fast. And diabolos is asking Jesus to give up his discipline. The temptation to quit. Then he's taken up to a high place and he's shown all of the worldly kingdoms, all of the kingdoms of power. Diabolos is trying to get Jesus to give up on his central mission. You see, Jesus didn't come for worldly power. Jesus came for spiritual power and truth. And then that third temptation, to jump off that pinnacle of the temple, to put God to the test. Diabolos wanted Jesus to put God to the test. But Jesus didn't come to test God. He came to display God. The fundamental temptation in all of life, to quit, to give up. Now let me ask you a question. In your walk, are you thinking about giving up? Have you thought about giving up on something or giving up on someone? Now look, I know, let's be clear, there are times when something needs to be set down. It could be anything from a job that's just not good for you, a job that you're miserable in, that's not wholesome for you. Sometimes you need to change jobs. Or sometimes you need to move on from a relationship that is abusive and not wholesome, not healthy. You don't have to stand there and let yourself be the target all the time for abuse. Let's be clear about that. But, however, if you're quitting, if you're giving up, it's because you don't think that you are good enough, or if you simply think that the task before you is too difficult, that is a diabolos temptation. Diabolos will make you think that you're not good enough, and will make you think that you are not equal to the task. And there's this tape that goes around and around in your head telling you these things. You know, I had a little, I don't know, 7th grader, and it made my heart hurt. This little 7th grader told me that she was no good at math, so she was just going to give up on it. That's diabolos. Tried to explain this to her. I said, that's just you comparing yourself to other people. If you want to do something here, you can always get better for yourself, but diabolos always wants you to compare with other people. Now, you know, I'm feeling a little emotion here because I gave up on math a long time ago. I want you to consider, is there something you are about to give up on because you don't feel good enough or you feel like it's too difficult? You know, diabolos will just come in there to our lazy side and tell us it's too hard, it's too difficult. Well, you know what? Life is difficult. And everything, just about everything that is worthwhile is hard. But diabolos gets in there and says, oh, it's too hard. Just set it off. I'm afraid that today I am seeing a diabolos temptation to quit that is undergoing in our American culture at large. There are people all over the place that have just given up on religion. One of the reasons why some people give up on religion is because of what I just talked about a while ago. Evolution. You know, I go to school and they tell me one thing, science says one thing, the church says another, and That's no reason to give up. Let's just get better informed. And let's embrace the truth. People are giving up on religion everywhere. Did you know that 25% of people in America don't identify with any religion? They don't identify with any religious group. And they have some good reasons. They'll say such things as, too much meanness out of those people, too much judgmentalness, too much exclusivity. They're right. They're right, but that's no reason to quit. Let's make it better. Let's make it the most magnanimous, inclusive, loving of all the diversities. Let's make our faith as inclusive as the love of God. How inclusive is that? It's no reason to give up and quit. Let's make it better. Or they'll say, well, I just don't have anything for the church. It's too sexist. That's right. They're right. The church is steeped in patriarchy. But that's no reason to give up on it. Let's make it better. Or they'll say, well, they said those people are just too dogmatic. They're right. But that's no reason to quit. Let's get better at it. And be a little less dogmatic. We got this, how many people do you meet that just has this insatiable desire to be right? They've always got to be right. And boy, they will defend their position to the hilt. And God forbid if anybody raises a question. Let's make it better. These accusations are true. But that's no reason to... I have people telling me, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. That's a good reason to make religion more spiritual. Not to quit, not to give up. Oh, this is the diabolos temptation, to give up. Together, we as a congregation are going to take a close walk with our Lord. Life is hard. And there will come a moment, I promise you, there will come a moment when you will wonder, is it worth it? With just about everything that you are doing, there is going to come a moment when you're going to wonder, is it worth it? And there's going to be a temptation to give up. This will happen again and again and again. But I want you to know something. You are never, never alone in your walk. You've got your brothers and your sisters. You've got Christ. You've got Jesus Christ. So, That diabolos voice that you keep hearing, that you're no good or that it's too hard, you can't. Listen, Jesus' voice is much clearer, much louder, saying, you are everything you need to be. You are good. You are equal to the task if you just don't give up. So, as a congregation, we're going to walk close with Jesus. And now I want you to hear the best version of this song that I've ever heard. If you can get past the hairdo and just listen to her sing, it'll be a spiritual experience.